Good morning. Welcome to our second breakfast session of this year on a topic that is there's quite some activity on in a broad range of organizations, namely enterprise business platforms. We've lined up three speakers with quite some background in the topic, starting with Tom. Tom is head of architecture at Equans in the Benelux, and he'll give us a presentation on the why and what of enterprise business platforms at Equans. Then Ingrid, one of our architects active in the field, will dive into what it actually means to architecture such an enterprise business platform landscape. And Serge will close the topic. Serge is one of our seasoned transformation program managers active in this field, and he'll guide us through some insights in how to structure and manage such a transformation. And then at the end of the session, we'd like to take the opportunity, or Laurent likes to take the opportunity to give you some info on our activity that we developed together with Antwerp Management School in the context of our partnership. Tom, I propose you start the session.
Yes, I'll share my screen, if that's okay for you.
Yep.
So, good morning, everyone. As mentioned by Bart, I'm responsible for the architects and the developers of Equans Benelux. Equans, a company that might not be known to some of you, so I took the liberty of adding a short introduction of what we do and who we are. So to give you a short history summary of what Equans is in Belgium and Luxembourg, we started off as Fabricom a long time ago. We added HVAC activities under the name of Axima, acquired maintenance business under the name of Koffeli, and got acquired by Suez, which led to Fabricom, Koffeli, and Axima all belonging to the NG Group. Now, recently, about a year ago, NG decided to split off their service activities, and the name of the services companies that were NG Solutions at that time became Equans. So what is Equans? Equans is and wants to remain a world leader in multi-technical services. We are a world leader. We are a new company. We always call ourselves a startup of about 75,000 people. We're working in about 17 countries, have a turnover of about 12 billion, and we have 6 main activities which are complementary and which I'll explain in detail later on. This gives a short overview of the countries we're available in or in which we're working in. Please note that these are all the headquarters. It's not because a country is not on this list that we don't have any, let's call it expat services in there. Our vision and mission, so we focus on 3 main missions. It's energy transition, industrial transition, and digital transition. So we want to deliver energy services that minimize carbon footprint, that optimize productivity, and that do that in a digital way. And then maybe a short overview on which businesses we're active in. As I mentioned, 6 complementary businesses: HVAC, fire and security, facility management, digital and ICT, industrial performance, and electrical. So that was it for the short intro on what Equans is. Now maybe on IT strategy. So as I mentioned, about a year ago, the NG Group decided to split off the services companies. That meant that we had about a year time to carve out all of our IT platforms and activities from the NG Group. Especially for Benelux, most of them were shared. So we had big IT foundations that were shared with the NG Group in Belgium or with the former Electrabel. So we needed to come up with a plan to get out and to make sure that the first priority to make sure that the lights kept running. Now we're closing on the actual network cut. So 1st of July we will be totally independent of the NG network. That also meant that we needed to start looking towards the future. That we needed to make sure not only to leverage whatever we did in the carve out. So duplicated platforms, technical service agreements that we made with NG in both directions. We also needed to investigate what areas, what platforms, what capabilities we should invest in for future references. So our main driver in that exercise was making sure that we can support our business and business processes in the most efficient way. That also meant that instead of looking for the best of breed solutions or a combination of best of breed solutions that we did in the past, we needed to make sure that we had something that was efficient, that was not necessarily the most expensive on the market, and that was available in an integrated way. And then third of all, we needed to make sure that we optimized and monitored our IT costs. I think that goes without saying. If you're a new company that you need to invest, but that for sure you need to make sure that costs remain under control. Some of the guiding principles that we took when starting the carve out. So we worked closely together with our governance at group level. So Equans is now a worldwide player. It has 6 major business units, of which Equans Benelux is one. But that means that we also need to work together with the corporate structure, with the corporate governance that has been put in place. The 3 guiding principles that we took working together with that corporate governance is technological convergence. So we look for standardization and industrialization where possible. We try to converge to a common organization. So each individual MBU still has its local IT teams, which need to work with that global IT team. And we try to rationalize vendors where possible. We noticed that we have a huge number even of vendors in the different MBUs, and that a lot of cost savings could be done if not only by rationalizing the systems, but also the vendors behind them. Maybe some more details on the principles that we applied. So as mentioned, we try to rationalize, industrialize, simplify our IT environments. One of the ways of doing that is going for SaaS platforms, for business platforms. So one of the other architecture principles that we adhere to is cloud first, meaning SaaS over PaaS over IaaS, and borrow before buy, before build. So those all fit in that one principle of making sure that we rationalize, industrialize, and simplify. We have a central IT governance, a local IT governance. Both need to work together. We try to globalize operations, not by centralizing operations, but by making sure that there's one consolidated team or one virtual team that's responsible of a given set of services. We secure by design, which is a different approach as we had before. So that's an important one. We need to make sure that security is part of the design as from the start of a project. We try to support, we support our business and digital development with data, a really important one, and platform capabilities. So we focus a lot on data analytics, on business platforms, on low-code, no-code platforms to make sure that we offer our businesses the digital capabilities that they require to offer their services to their customers. We want to invest in the skills of our employees, which is a very difficult topic at this day and age. I think it's clear for everyone in the IT world that the market is difficult and that you need to invest in IT resources. And we try to leverage the infrastructure that's in place. So as mentioned before, we had a carve-out project. We needed to make sure that the lights kept running. We had a lot of projects that were started to duplicate infrastructure to set up agreements with the former NG group. But we also need to make sure that we leverage that and that we identify where to invest for the future. This led to a series of entry services that we try to apply across our landscape today. So we have our data, our analytics, and our new applications that are built on top of that data. That's the first layer that you see on top of the slide. We have a common data management layer in which we standardize all of our data sources, and in which we also create an ontology of all of our data sources, allowing us to create lineage and a view on what source data is used in what data objects. We have our main corporate softwares in which we use only business platforms at this time, or which in which we will use only business platforms on a short term. So we have our ERP, that can be SAP or Dynamics. We have our CRM, which is Salesforce, and we have our payroll software, which is being reviewed, which is SAP for my scope, but which might be different for the other BUs. And then within the fourth layer, we have our IT foundations, which are, I assume, are known in all of the companies at cybersecurity, cloud-first infrastructure, a new workplace design, a new network design, and a new way of doing identity access management. Now, how does this translate to the real world, to an ongoing project, which is called Equinize? Equinize is a project that focuses on a reorganization within Belux, not only the split of the NG group, but also a reorganization of legal entities. And that reorganization of legal entities has a huge impact on the way our ERP, our Salesforce, our data platforms are organized. So this is a project which has actually a huge impact on the business platforms that are in place or that will evolve in the near future. So what we did, we started off with the conceptual view, going to the management team, to the COMEX. And we identified a number of layers which we needed to work on, which we needed to get a new view on. The first being a customer facing, a portal. How do we communicate with our customers? A sales and CRM layer. How do we identify, maintain, get in touch with our customers? A third one, which is workforce. How do we make sure that our technicians are able to do their work? How do we make sure that they can register time, that they can invoice, and so on? A big integration layer, an ERP layer, which contains all of our support functions, and aside of it, a central logistics service that offers warehouses for our operational teams. And then below, all of the finance, procurement, and HR tools that are needed to make sure that the people working in our organization can do their job. And then last but not least, a big data lake and business intelligence platform, because data analytics are becoming increasingly important for us. And if we translate that to a real-life architecture schema, you can already see that it's still complex. We still have a lot of arrows between different blocks. We still have a lot of satellite applications on the side, if I can put it that way. But you can also see that there's definitely a number of platform systems that are already in place. We have a big block that is portal. We have a big block for the CRM, a big block for data and integration, and a big block for ERP. And this is really the model that we will keep, the model that we will work on for all new projects or projects to come. So that was it for me. I know that it was maybe a bit fast. I don't know if there's any questions, but you're definitely free to get in touch with me. Should there be any questions, or should you want to discuss this in person?
Ingrid, can you guide us through insights on how to architecture this sort of landscape?
Okay, so let me just share my screen. Just a second. Okay, so good morning, everybody. For the next part of the presentation, I will take you to some more details on indeed architecture in an enterprise business process program platform landscape. Sorry. So the EBP, which is indeed difficult to pronounce, I just realized we have not really given even a description of it. So what we mean with enterprise business platforms is those commercial off-the-shelf software packages that you can buy. They usually cover a large functional scope, one or multiple end-to-end processes. Very typical or known example is indeed the ERP, the enterprise resource planning, or CRM, but there are many more versions of that, some more in niche area where they just manage a lab, a warehouse, or a maintenance activity. And so more on the architectural angle. So in architecture, there are typically various angles, various domains you work on. There's the more art part when we talk about why we do certain things or what somebody wants to achieve. So this is not the focus of this presentation. In an EBP landscape, it's as difficult to get the real why and people to describe problems rather than solutions they want you to implement. It's also not about more the technology side of tools, patterns, methods. It's more on the what. So what it's more in the how. Sorry, what can you actually do to get from what people want, the why, and how it can be implemented. So in an EBP landscape, the typical key challenges you face there is indeed it comes by nature because you buy a package. That's what you actually buy, a predefined data model. It comes with a set of process and progress flows for business processes. So when you buy that, you typically want to respect it and not totally change. Otherwise, you should never have bothered to pay a license for that intellectual property. It is highly configurable, such a package. So obviously, if you have seen one, it doesn't mean that in another company, the same software is not totally differently implemented. So there's a need to understand the design and logic and choices that were made in implementing that particular instance of the software. These packages, they evolve all the time, and there is increasing complexity. If you compare an ERP of 20, 30 years ago, there's limited functionality in it compared to now. Vendors, obviously, they want to keep you on board and cover as much as functionality with their tool or set of tools that they sell. So they are indeed not eager to make sure that the package covers only one part. The more they can sell you, the happier they are. They are rarely built, these packages, for just any integration. Maybe some very specific, yes, but trying to combine two totally different ERPs, they were never designed for that. And so obviously there are connectors on offer, but a tool is just a tool. There are 1,000,001 scenarios, so I don't need to explain. It's not because you have the tool that it will actually lead to success. So given all these constraints that come with buying an EBP package and typically having multiple in a landscape, what you typically see is accidental architecture. So it's more of a reflection of history, how the company evolved, acquisitions that happened, divestitures that were there, choices that were made because of a budget or whatever constraint. And so it's very common to see integration of tools that were actually never meant to be integrated. Two ERPs doing exactly the same, and you use part of the functionality of one, and the rest happens in another one. So that's not a good combination. There are multiple entry points for the same data set, because obviously if you buy these tools, they all want the same data, and they've all built them as if they are the main tool. So this typically leads to manual keying and rekeying, integration mismatch. People provide an integration for the happy flow, but a lot of unhappy flows can exist. So that is rarely properly designed in integration. So there is data inconsistency, and it typically leads to a poor user experience for the end-to-end process if you have to cross multiple of these packages. So this is a bit the constraints and typically the result getting to an accidental architecture. Now, some 5 years ago, I made this picture. Don't worry, it's not an eye test. I will zoom in on the picture to get some more details. But this was actually indeed the landscape at a car tire manufacturer, and they also had a retail part, which is indeed servicing tires or even servicing fleets with providing them with tires. And if we zoom in on their landscape, so they had multiple versions of the same ERP, but in one country they implemented this instance. In another country, it looked a bit alike, but was slightly different. Same software vendor, same name of the package, maybe a bit behind on versions. And so over a short period of time, they had already 4 of those. They could not manage the master data, so they added yet another of the same ERP, but just to manage some other processes and integrated that. Same happened in point of sale. So by country, they had different softwares to be the point of sale. Now, obviously, if they all need to talk to each other, it starts to be multiple arrows of the same just because you have different instances. They had no integration platform, and it was getting to be highly complex, very expensive to keep that going. We actually did the calculation that for every penny spent or every euro spent in new development, they had to spend half of that to just keep the integration going. It was slow to make any changes in the environment and high risk of failure of some system falling out, data being wrong. And so I made like this blue blocks here saying, what are some good advice, some good steps to take here? So reduce the technical mix, eliminate unnecessary uniqueness. You don't need the same ERP 3 times differently implemented just because it's another country. Some tools are not fit for purpose. You don't buy a full ERP to actually just do some master data management. They should invest in a master data, in an integration platform, and you really need to manage and govern data. Now, this was made specifically for that, that environment. Now, if I just take the same framework and put in another totally unrelated company, the landscape in that, this is actually the landscape at Equans of, I think, a year and a half ago. And if we zoom in on that, we see very similar problems. So we have 8, I think, instances of Salesforce CRM here, 3 already for field service, another field service here with Maximo tool, 1 main ERP, another ERP here, another ERP here, and they're not even all on the picture. No integration platform, point-to-point integration, so obviously leading to also manual data key. So the dotted arrow is manual data. So it actually just fits. I can just take the same set saying this is highly complex, costs are high, slow to change that. So the same set of advice pointers actually applies. Go for an integration platform, which we are now doing at Equans. Select fit for purpose tools, unnecessary uniqueness. You don't need that many versions of the same type of functionality. And so this is actually the move we are making in Equans. I take another example. So this is currently an as-is landscape. It's not been redrawn into an architecture, but it's just the picture that exists for now. So it's a landscape in pharmaceutical industry. And again, you see the same things happening. 1, 2, 3, 4 ERP type of functionalities. An ERP that is servicing mainly a plant operation. So it's doing much more than what in functionality what is needed. No real data integration. So point-to-point interfacing, lots of different versions of the truth. I think it takes about 4 or 5 times that you need to key in a new customer to be in all the systems, so you can actually be serviced as a customer. So exactly the same historical accidental architecture and exactly the same things that can help get out of the issues that exist today. High costs, slow to change, highly complex, and risk of indeed mistakes of certain parts not being correct. Okay, so which comes to the final slide. So as an architect, what is typically the role here is really to expose the complexity and the risks and the problems. Seeing it all together on drawing, realizing that you have like 9 instances of Salesforce, it starts people to think, what's going on here? Also identifying the cost, what it takes to change. So once you get the complexity exposed, the risks and the problems visible, maybe you cannot start with the whole landscape in one go, but it even happens in one end-to-end process. You start to visualize that. People start to indeed understand why we talk about needs for integration platform, why it's not a good idea to have 7 versions of the same. And architecture can indeed play a role on getting a roadmap out of the accidental architecture. It obviously comes with indeed a change in mindset culture that really you need to architect, that you have a landscape by design and not by accident. And the little box, we can probably put it in the master slide of any architecture drawing that it applies all the time. You should go or look for these problem areas. Okay, which is indeed my last slide, and handing over to Serge. Not yet.
Yeah, okay. So good morning, everyone. Serge Grimweg. I will present something about program management of these business platform transformations.
Serge, we don't see your slides. Huh?
We don't see the slide. We see the picture. We see you.
Ah, sorry.
You.
Okay. That's not 1 second. Let me.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I will discuss something about program management. First of all, I will discuss something. What is the difference between a program and a project? And then how do we do a program management using some specific examples from previous experience seen in various companies and missions. Maybe to start off with, because sometimes the program management is used in the same wording as project management or the other way around. What is the main difference? For me, program management is when multiple projects happen at the same time, which are also interlinked. And so there are many dependencies and also many changes over time. Most importantly, programs should focus on the long term, making sure to look at it from a full enterprise perspective. So not only IT, not only business, but both. Whereas project management is more focused on the shorter term with a clear deliverable, or maybe a set of deliverables. But the focus is on control. And there are constraints in work and resources. I think that's those are two other main differences. And of course, the duration. A project can be anything up from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Programs tend to take at least 1 year, if not several years. So what does it take to do program management? I think there are 3 steps that are very important. First is accountability. Second, to make your steps actionable, to put them into action. And then once you have put that into action, to accelerate. How can you speed up things, not only for quick delivery, but also to reach a business case in the end? Because that is, of course, your objective as a program manager, to make sure that it's not only the new systems are being delivered, but that it becomes clear for everybody that there are benefits and that they are achieved. So accountability, is it a one-man show as a program manager? Is this person on his own responsible? No, there is a whole team of stakeholders, usually various departments involved, including the senior management. So I think there are a couple of factors that play a role to become a successful program manager. First of all, authentic, so integer, independent. I think it's very important that he or she can operate on his own, but still what I call the coffee machine factor, or in other words, the informal circuit, to keep talking to the people and make sure that you're on top of things and that you know if there are changes upcoming, that you know them not only formally but also informally, so you can adjust where needed. Actionable governance. What do I mean with that? In the core, on the bottom, clear enterprise strategy, what already discussed in the previous slides, also the why factor. So why do we do something? Where do we want to go to? That's where the line heads towards the future. Create a safe environment, also important. Assign roles and responsibilities. And finally, root cause analysis. Let me clarify it a bit more. So clear strategy. Once the strategy is defined, it's very important that stakeholder management is applied, with, of course, a focus on the key players, people that are both highly interested, but also have a mandate, are empowered to make decisions and to support you in the decisions you make. Environment in your program management team, because of course it's never the program manager usually doesn't run the show on his own, but he has a team of people, and it's important that these people can be project managers, PMO, and other roles. Feel free to speak up if they see issues or risks, and do not remain silent or mention it too little and too late. Roles, responsibilities. I will tell more about this in the next slides, but it's very important that it becomes clear, both in the to be, into the target situation, who does what, when, but also looking back to the as is and make sure that this migration, the change of people in the new processes are well aware, are well trained, and know why certain things are being done. Root cause analysis. Why is this in this case an example of where there's some slippage in a program? Why do I put in not only the program manager but also the little robot on the left-hand side? Because it is both a combination of human interest but also data-driven decisions. So make sure that you are able to gather some data. So it's not only the person with, let's say, the biggest mouth, so to speak, that wins the arguments, but that is only also looking at data to make sure that the analysis is fully complete and that all the main problems and issues are identified up front. And we dive into more. We want to accelerate things. If the previous steps have all been set up, can already be done in the beginning. But if you want to accelerate, how to go ahead? I think there are a couple of steps to take. You want to start small but quick. You want to achieve a quick success. Having done that in your first wave, then you want to continue to align on other waves and next steps. Well, of course, keeping all the people involved. And finally, you want to change the whole enterprise and want to accelerate, of course, celebrate the delivered benefits. Let me make it a bit more clearer. So with various waves, this refers to a company that's multinational and has several is present in several countries. So how do you do it? What should you do in the first wave, or what is also called the pilot wave? Well, first of all, you want to create a blueprint. How will things run for this, let's say, this country, but also reuse that for the other markets. You start with a small, what I would call friendly customers, people that you are not at risk of losing or with which there is a tense relationship, but people that are very happy with your product, that they buy and are on good terms with you. Thirdly, I would call it a ninja team. Make sure that there is a dedicated small team, maybe 4 or 5 people that know both business and IT to make sure that any issues that occur during the wave, during the rollout, because there will be issues, can be solved as quickly as possible. Then it's time to execute. And finally, after the execution, after a couple of weeks, time to assess the lessons learned and integrate it into the next wave. Then the next wave is then wave 2. Because you want to ramp up. You want a wave 2, you can select a couple of countries in this case. I would say never change your winning team, so please reuse the ninja team as much as possible, but also involve operations. At point 3, I think the ninja team is a kind of standalone, but also the operations people, the internal people should be involved for much more in the second wave. Executed wave, do an evaluation. And maybe 2 last points. This is the wave 2 is the last wave that is executed separately or in a serial wave. And finally, create what I would call a finisher team. There are always some things that items that pop up that cannot be solved in the time frame. Excuse me. It's important that there is a separate team to do this, not the ninja team, because they are busy already in wave 3 and more. I will share that in a couple of seconds. But this finishing team has the rights, has the access and the tools to close all the open gaps that are still there. And then wave 3 and more, depending on the number of markets or countries. While planning the remaining scope, operations becomes in the lead. So no longer the ninja team. Why is this? Well, we want to run these waves in parallel. And it was not first wave 3 and then 4, then 5, and then 6, etc. No, we want to ramp up, to execute it at the same time. Because, why is this important? I think there are 2 main reasons for this. First, you want to reach your business case as quickly as possible to make sure that what was set up in the beginning is executed accordingly. And also, I would say, keep the momentum in the organization. Keep it because people are engaged, are enthusiastic. If there are delays, or if your wave is only in 2025 and not in 2022, you don't care about it anymore. You will see that in 3 years' time, the world will have changed. However, if you say, well, please be aware in January 2023, it's your term. When you say that now, then of course the interest is much more because there's only a couple of months to go. Then another example of a business platform rollout, again over several countries, it is of course a simplified version. And so we've got incoming order channels. There's a new platform for order management, which gives input into ERP platform. So what happens in this case, and what is the role of the program manager? Well, for example, excuse me, the order management platform is delivered sooner than the new ERP platform. So the order management platform still has to work with the old version of it. So what happens is the classic garbage in is garbage out. Also issues that pop up in the new order management platform, but are in reality because of the old setup of the ERP platform. And finally, the garbage between brackets. It's not by definition the fault of the people that manage the garbage. It can be because of broken processes. It can be because of unclarity, unfamiliarity with certain ways of working. So there can be various issues, and the role of the program manager is to identify where is the issue and who can help solve this. Second remark is that if there are, let's say, 15 order managers, for example, we tend to see 15 different ways of working, but we only have one platform. And also, we only want to go to one way of working for various reasons. It's faster to onboard new people. It's easier, but it's also cheaper. You only need one flow to work with. Finally, pushback from local entities to keep their current way of working. What we see when we roll this out, there are local entities that keep pushing for their old way of working for cultural reasons, because it's the way they are used to working, which is easier for them. There can be various reasons, and for this you need support of the senior management team. I will come back on that in the next slide. But this is what we always see, because everybody wants to harmonize and standardize, but preferably towards their own way of working, which is not necessarily from a local entity. It's not necessarily the same from a enterprise global perspective. So where must the program manager intervene in these transformations? What are the typical topics that he should look into? Well, first of all, of course, risk management. But not only what I tend to see is that this is usually done in the beginning. There's a whole list of risks. But throughout the program, I think it's important that the program manager takes a step back and keeps monitoring the risks and, of course, mitigate them as much as possible. Secondly, escalation paths. This should also be one of the first deliverables to decide who can make decisions on issues. Because once the issues are there in the rollout, it's basically too late. You need to set this up as one of the first deliverables. Number 3, the business case. Very important to always keep monitoring the business case, not only in the beginning to create it, but also to have a look at it and see if, for example, if order creation in the new way of working takes twice the amount of time, there should be an additional push from the program manager to have additional automation. Otherwise, you will not reach your business case. Finally, step 4, standardization or harmonization. Again, the business case. It's not for the sake of standardization per se, but it makes makes the way of working more profitable for the company. But this requires buy-in and support from the senior management, both at the start, which is usually there, otherwise they wouldn't have hired you as a program manager. But it's important to keep them engaged, because, like I said previously, it is also because the senior management, they will get also input from the local entities, because if you as a program manager say, no, we cannot do that change, we cannot send those invoices separately anymore, they must now become to the normal way of working. Then the local entity will escalate it towards the senior management, so they should be already aware of this, and say also to the local entity, to the manager of that local entity, no, we cannot do that anymore. We need to standardize, so we are staying with the original plan. And finally, I think the most important one, ultimate objective, as a program manager, you should not be too involved in too many details. You should keep your eyes on the big picture, but of course, always remain solution-oriented. Always thinking ahead of what can be done and define 2-3 scenarios for the senior management to take a decision on the way forward. And also not only on the beautiful blue eyes of the program manager, but also looking again into the business case and the impact on the organization. And with that, I'd like to give the floor, I think, to Laurent.
First of all, thank you, Tom, Ingrid, Serge, to give your take on what are in general quite challenging undertakings in organizations, as you rightly explained. Now, to end the session, yes, I would like to hand over the word to Laurent and give us some view on our partnership that we developed with AMS.
Yes, thank you, Bart. Hi there, good morning. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time for an important message about our partnership. As I'm sure you know, at XPLUS we have an academy which is focused on growing architects and architecture practice in general. So we have 3 kinds of services which are based on assessment, trainings, and individual mentoring. If you want more information about that, especially about our trainings, you can find our open calendar curriculum on our website. But what I really want to talk about today is our partnership with AMS, and more in particular, the digital transformation portfolio, where we provide a number of teachers for the sessions, by the way. There are 4 part-time masters offered in that portfolio, all academic level education, so each with a different focus, as you can see. So there's one on enterprise IT architecture, there's one on IT management, on IT governance and assurance, and risk and cybersecurity management. Each is composed of a different mix of the master classes. So you have 8 master classes in total. You can choose to enroll for an individual master class. That's entirely possible. So essentially, you don't have to enroll for the full 2 years. You can. To give you a flavor, this is the META, so the Master in Enterprise IT Architecture. And as you can see, each masterclass is more than just a few hours on an afternoon. These are spread on several days and are full masterclasses. The message is the following. If you're thinking about enrolling, it's a very good timing. The new academic year starts in September with a residential opening seminar on the 29th and 30th of September. So there's still time, but registrations are coming in fast. So if you want more information, don't wait. Do contact us, contact me. We'll be happy to answer questions you may have, and we can discuss if you are eligible for an XPLUS discount up to 10%. Voilà, that was the very short message I wanted to give. So, floor back to you, Bart.
Many thanks, Laurent. With this message, I would like to close this session. We'll have a session after summer, surely, about the next interesting topic. We'll announce that very shortly in the coming weeks. Many thanks, and see you all very soon.